Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beer and Bastards. In case you haven't heard of us, we're some of the admins of probably the most popular pages on Facebook. Certainly more popular than Unbiased America, which is extremely biased, and tries to pass facts off as as actual facts and numbers as actual numbers. It's crazy, really. And here I'm with Michael Lee, who's the purveyor of Being Liberal Logic, which espouses liberal logic, and Matt Palumbo, who's a co-admin at Being Liberal Logic and a co-admin at Being Classically Liberal. Also, Morgan Parody, who has a blog at morganparody.com and a podcast that's called Deep Thoughts, which I think was also a Saturday Night Live skit, but I could be wrong.
Yes, I ripped it off. I'm not even kidding.
Wasn't that
legendary.
like Stuart Smalley, Deep Thoughts? Isn't that what it was?
No, Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy.
Oh yeah, Jack Handy. That's right. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Oh, it's so
I mean,
good,
Michael
though.
Lee probably doesn't know anything about it because he's really European now. He's been in Europe for a really long time, and he's broadcasting actually from Belgium.
I don't know anything that happens in America ever.
Are you a socialist now?
Ah, close.
You're
getting there.
You're getting close. Is it because you troll Being Liberal so much, or is it because you live in Europe?
It's a combination of both. You know, the convincing arguments on being liberal combined with being over here in Europe.
Oh, that makes total sense. I can see how that happens. Speaking of which, speaking of information, Brian Williams this week got nailed for lying a lot about his experience in Iraq in 2003. Something about RPG fire hitting his helicopter, though his helicopter was nowhere near it. And then the angel Gabriel swooped out of heaven and caught him in his arms and brought him to safety. Something like that. I don't know. What's your opinion on the whole Brian Williams thing, Mike? Do you think this is is it something that you would have expected? Does it make you angry? Is it funny? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of funny just, as an observer of the news. But it's not surprising because actually he's been making these claims for, since the invasion for 11 years. And in the veteran community, people have been calling him out for this for years. He just happened to do it on the air this time. And veterans take this stuff, I know a lot of them, they take this stuff very seriously. And when he did it on the air, they called him out, and he got what he deserved, I guess. You can't lie to millions of viewers on the air like that. That's crazy.
Right. Matt,
Yes, sir.
are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
What do you think about the Brian Williams thing?
For some reason.
Okay.
Well,
That's good.
Mike,
That's all you need. That's all you need to hear right now.
okay. Yes, I don't know if Mike covered.
Don't worry about Mike. No one wants to hear him anyway. Anyway,
That's what everybody's here for.
yeah.
Anyway.
Maddie, what do you think about the Brian Williams thing? Do you think it was to be expected? Do you ever watch the nightly news? Do you think anyone really ever cares, or what do you think?
I don't watch him, but I mean the problem with I have isn't so much that he lied; it's just the way he did it. Like he was taking other people's stories and lying to kind of make them about himself. It's kind of like the equivalent of stolen valor, but for I guess lesser stories. But still, I mean that's kind of the problem I have with it. And no, Mike, I really can't hear you. I'm not
Okay.
lying.
Yeah,
Aw.
you're so lucky, Matt. Morgan, you've heard the question. What do you think? Did you watch? Well, I mean, you're a young person. I think you're
I am.
11.
I am 20. I just turned 20.
Okay,
So double digits.
20. So you're 20. What did you grow up watching? Ever the Anchors? Did you watch Dan Rather, or was that were you like
Nope.
2 then? You might have been 2.
I was very young, but I'm a journalism major. And we talked about this in my journalism class today, but we watched also the Daily Show segment that Jon Stewart talked about it, and I just think it is mind-blowing that the Pentagon can just lose $1 trillion, but then Brian Williams says one thing wrong and we go insane. We dig into his entire past. We go into everything that he's ever done, how many puppies he saved from a fire. It's 1 or 2, Brian, 1 or 2. And And then we like have this government that's doing whatever it wants. It's just insane. But I think it's a good thing that he's getting all this shit because, honest journalism is important. So it's
No,
like
that's
you cannot tolerate that in that field. It's just
I think I
you
have
can't.
to disagree. I think Brian Williams lying about how many dogs he saved is the most pressing issue right now. So
It is, because where is that dog today? What about its family? What about the integrity of its litter?
well, he saved it, so
It's
I mean,
important
it's
stuff.
all going well, probably.
Can you elaborate on the $1 trillion? Was it lost by whom? The Pentagon?
Yeah, I was watching a Robert Murphy lecture, Mises Institute, and there's
Yeah.
no like it wasn't even like it wasn't spent on anything. It's just not accounted for. Like in the budget, there's just like everyone's like, where did the money go? And there's no like nothing there to show where it went. It's just gone.
Only $1 trillion?
Only
That's
a
no big
trillion.
You only need
God,
like
That's
whatever.
no big deal. We
pay for that, so.
right. We spend $1 trillion on to bail out banks all the time. Yeah, no big deal.
Still too much.
So here's another question, and I'm going to start with Mike on this one though. Jon Stewart steps down from the Daily Show. Do you think it's a coincidence? And let's say it's not a coincidence, and hypothetically speaking, Jon Stewart takes over the reins at, say, NBC. Does that make NBC even more of a joke than it is now? Or do you think they're actually better off with a guy like Jon Stewart who knows absolutely nothing about journalism? What say you, Mike?
Oh, I think it is a coincidence. I don't think it was planned, and I don't think he will take the desk there. The significance of Jon Stewart stepping down is he's a liberal icon, more so than any of the serious, quote-unquote, publications that are out there. So I think it's going to leave a huge void for liberals. I don't think he's going to step into the desk at NBC, but if he did, it would be interesting to see how he transitioned to that, because like you alluded to, he's not a real journalist. He's never had any journalistic qualities, and anytime anybody's ever called him out on that, he's hid behind the fact that he's supposed to be comedy. So he tries to be serious until someone calls him out on a legitimate point, and then he hides behind the fact that he's comedy. So it would be interesting to see him take over at NBC, but I think in the end it would be a joke.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, Matt,
Yes,
I mean, Jon Stewart, not a real journalist, but we just had a real journalist lie about puppies and, I don't know, taking RPG fire and gangs attacking him at the Ritz-Carlton during Hurricane Katrina. So do you think anybody at this point, just throw anyone on TV, if people like him and they get the viewers, does it really matter at this point? I mean, I don't see him. I never saw Brian Williams before as credible. I don't see Jon Stewart as credible. Does it even matter? What do you think?
I'm kind of cut out near the
Can you hear
end,
me?
I'm sorry.
Is he gone?
Did you hear anything I said, or are you just drunk already? Because I know that happens to you quite quickly. Or are you just dicking around on the comments section? Anyway, okay.
Okay.
Morgan, did you hear my question?
I can't
I
hear
did
it all,
hear it.
but so I don't
Go ahead.
want to divert to someone else. I'm sorry.
I do not like Jon Stewart. I remember on the 5. I know a lot of libertarians and such do not like Fox News, but I watch Fox News some of the shows because I appreciate some of the commentary. But what Greg Gutfeld said was that a bad cop has to be a good cop some of the time, so he gains, some respect. So people say, oh, well, Jon Stewart attacked both sides. Like 10%, 90%. It's not like he's like this unbiased guy that just reaches out he just like attacks anybody he wants, but he's totally journalist. It's just bullshit. And you think he never attacks MSNBC either. There's so much insanity going on at MSNBC, but Fox is just hilarious for them. I mean, it can be something that the commentator is saying that isn't even stupid, and people in his laugh track will be laughing at it just because they're from Fox. But they don't even attack MSNBC. They use like CNN as the liberal like journalism, cable news, and that's not representative of what the left is doing as far as cable news goes. But I just don't give a shit about Jon Stewart. I think his jokes are too easy. when he could be way smarter about them, and he's attacking the wrong people most of the time.
Okay. I have a follow-up question really quickly too, Morgan. When you said you watched Fox News, you felt like you had to defend yourself here a little bit.
Yes, I do.
Why? Why do you? Does it matter? I don't.
Well,
or is it because you?
When you say you watch Fox
libertarians
News,
and liberals go after you?
yes.
Go ahead.
And it's when you say you watch Fox News, people assume that you watch Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and you like suck at their tea. But that's not what it is. I mean, there's so much diversity of opinion at Fox News. I mean, like Greg Guffel does not think the same thing as Hannity, and Andy Levy does not think the same thing as Megyn Kelly. I mean, it's like you have to look at the individual. It's like maybe the classical liberal in me, but like saying Fox News is bad is not accurate because you might agree with some of the things people are saying. So I watch shows like The Five is really good, and of course Red Eye, which Matt knows about. Matt, oh, this way. No, shit, this way. Matt likes that show, but there's some good stuff on Fox News, and people dismiss it immediately just because of people like O'Reilly and Hannity.
Right. What do you think, Michael? Where do you get your news from? I mean, you don't get any American news over there. You probably watch Al Jazeera all day long.
Hey, Al Jazeera is better than any American cable news channel.
Oh, you did turn into a lib. I knew it. You're a lib. Anyway, where do you get most of your news from? I mean, is it because of your digging when you're working and creating content for Being Liberal Logic? Or do you, like, if you just want to sit down and just get some mindless news, where do you go?
Well, I don't like to watch cable news. I get my news on the internet from, well-known publications and from some unwell-known publications. Actually, over here, though, CNN's a lot better than CNN is in the States. I get CNN Worldwide. They do this weird thing where they actually kind of report the news, and they don't try to tell you what you're supposed to think about the news. And when they do have someone that has an opinion, they don't attempt to act like they're unbiased about their opinion. They come on and they say, "Hey, I'm giving you a conservative perspective on what I think." It's a lot different. CNN World is a lot different than CNN America. I don't watch it often, but it's definitely a lot better here than it is in the States.
Right. My opinion, Fox News has some good hard news anchors. Bret Baier is probably one of the best, I would have to say. Then Cheryl Atkinson's good, who doesn't have a job because of it. But I mean, you got to here in this. I don't know. CNN, yeah, they report their news in a biased fashion. They report their hard news in a biased fashion. I don't see that as much at Fox News. I see why people don't like Bill O'Reilly. I can't stand that guy.
They don't like the commentary.
It's the commentary, and Bill O'Reilly's just really pompous and thinks he knows things about economics. I think I saw one show he advocated a $16 minimum wage so long as they get tax breaks. I have a revolutionary idea, Bill. How about they just get tax breaks and the market determines the price?
There
wow. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Right? Matt, where do you get your news from? You don't look like the faux news watcher. You know what I mean? You don't look like the MSNBC. Well, you look actually a bit more like an MSNBC guy. But where do you get your news from?
Honestly,
of what?
I do a lot through I guess social media.
Did you say Reddit?
In the finance section of Reddit is where I get a lot of news.
Can you hear me?
The news I look at is more.
Did you say Reddit?
I said Reddit.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I know you're kind of cutting out for me too. I'm sorry, but I know most of them. Yeah. I don't know, the economics and finance section of Reddit usually has a lot of good content. Most of the news I look at is more, I guess, financial news rather than political. But when I do political, I guess it would be more like Stossel.
What's that station? What's the station that? Well, not the station. It's Fox Business, but it has the Libertarian panel on there. What's that called with Kennedy?
Independent.
Oh,
Independence just got cut. It got canceled.
Oh, you're kidding.
But no, there's a new show called Kennedy. Kennedy hosts it, but Matt and Camille aren't on it anymore. But Kennedy is the host. It's called Kennedy. It's on FBN at 10 p.m. or something. So it just replaced
so that's kind of like what's going to happen here is that I have co-hosts like Matt Palumbo and Michael Lee, and eventually they're just going to be, well, Will, we just want you.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
Yeah, so I get it. And then we're gonna totally cut Unbiased America out of the loop because, I mean, their name is
Why
a
would
misnomer
we even-
compared to their content.
So that's when we're talking about biased news sources. Unbiased America's got to be the most biased of them all.
It's crazy, really, it is. And I think
Biased
that's why they gave.
confirms.
I think that's why that lady that runs the page gave it that name. You know what I mean? Kind of like
Yeah,
just to screw,
no doubt.
just to screw with people's minds. Yeah. So, Morgan, you seem to be in tune with the news stations.
Yeah.
Do you, where do you get your news from if you're not on Fox Spews? Where do you get your news?
Well, I don't even go to Fox for news. I don't even go to. I mean, I go to it to see what they think because I respect their opinions. But news, it doesn't even matter where it comes. Like news, as in stuff that happens. It's like the places I follow on Facebook, like your pages, post stuff that I hear about, then I read more into it from a variety of pages. There you go, thumbs up. From a variety of pages, or like I like reading opinions from Reason. Reason is one of my favorite magazines / websites. But I mean, when we talk about like where do you get your news from, like news is all around us all the time. Like even on Facebook, the headlines right there, what's going on, even though usually they're entertainment based. But when people say where do you get your news, it's usually where do you get your opinions on the news, which is what people watch.
Right.
But I think it's really easy to find what happened and then formulate your own opinion. But you can also absorb what other people think. So
Right.
I mean, it just depends on who's reporting it, like as in if they're reporting it or not, because some places might not report it. You just got to find all of the stuff that some people choose not to report.
Right. Yeah, and part of the problem with, and now the news is so accessible, you can get news from anywhere. They'll put anything out there. I mean, we've seen with the vaccination thing, so much contradictory news reports from, I don't know, just pages on, like you said, you mentioned pages, you'll read it from a page that you see on Facebook. There's a lot of pages that are still, posting anti-vax stuff, which has been debunked so many times. So it seems to be that, I don't know, I don't want to say regulation.
You can use
But-
any data to use your own opinion with it, so you just kind of got to look at it and
Right,
make
but it's
sure
somewhat
that it's-
dangerous.
that's fun.
It's somewhat, look what happened with the vaccinations. Here we have an outbreak. I mean, we eradicated, measles was completely eradicated in 2000. A doctor in 1998 said something that it's linked to autism, who was subsequently fired from whatever journal he was in, which was a medical journal. And, here we are, with 17 years later, we have an outbreak at Disneyland because people took this stuff seriously. And I mean, no matter how many times it's debunked or how many times the facts are out there, people just don't care. It's almost like being liberal. The page, people still follow it, even though they haven't posted one actual fact on their page ever. And I know Michael Lee can attest to that.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I'm
banned from being liberal, and I never wrote on the page, not one time. I don't under. How do they?
Just bans you. Yeah.
That's actually pretty. I gotta hand that to him. That's pretty funny.
And I didn't accept his request, and he sent me a link to like a song called "Why Can't We Be Friends." I laughed.
That's actually pretty
And
funny.
I sent back. I sent back a link to
another-
"Why Can't This Be Loved" by Def Leppard.
And to Morgan's point, I wanted to start on, her talking about how she gets news from Facebook pages.
I thought
I wanted to talk about your
piece,
piece, Palumbo, on 5 reasons progressives should like capitalism. I'm not sure. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure exactly if that's the title. I do stalk you quite a bit online. I look up your addresses and other pertinent information. I hope that's not weird. But I don't remember the exact title. But tell us a little bit about that. Give us one good reason why progressives should like capitalism, even though they're not going to like it anyway, no matter what the reason is. Go ahead.
Oh.
Give me from. Can you hear me?
Cut out to me after you said I stalk you a lot, and then I heard why should progressives like capitalism, so I still answer that question. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest reason is just that the more capitalistic economies have more growth. And I don't just study that Corey
Right.
posts a lot on BCL that something like 70%
So what you're saying is
of reduction in
overall
poverty
production
since the
is a good thing.
1970s
Increasing
worldwide is due to
production,
economic growth,
probably I would say
government
unleashing the free
So I
market
think
might be a
that's
good thing
number
for the
one.
environment, perhaps. Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't know where I got that from. I have no idea. I didn't read it. I swear. I was fully clothed when I was reading it. So
Well, that sounds like you read my piece, Will. It's just a coincidence. Like, yeah, I did write about that actually. No, the most capitalistic economies, they actually do tend to have more respect for the environment, and I mean, I think the reason is because people can afford to have respect for the environment in richer countries. I mean, because environmental regulations do pose a burden or do have a financial cost, you kind of have to be a rich country to be
Go ahead, Mike.
You can afford them.
Well, I
So
mean,
generally,
the other
richer
thing too, and I
countries-
think that a lot of people
economies
ignore
can't
this
afford
is
to have respect.
free market countries make
And I mean,
advancements
there's
in
also the whole
technology, and we're not
category of
using the
poverty.
same polluting technology that we were 30,
Right.
40 years ago. You know, some other countries that don't embrace free market principles are still using some of the old energy techniques that pollute the environment, while free market enterprises moved on from those kind of things. And if they don't, they're not as efficient, and the public will punish them for it. So I think that's another reason too.
okay,
I don't
that's a
even
good
think
reason.
that I don't even think that environmentalists, like leftist environmentalists, I don't think that they care truly about the environment. Most of them. I think they care about what's cool and what will get them attention and what's the most compassionate thing to do. I don't think they even care that this isn't working. Like they might not know, but they might just think that this is the best way to get liked by others. Like, I love the environment, so I'm advocating for this regulation. I'm going to protest for it, and people are going to put me on the news.
Okay, that's good. I was. All right, what was I going to say again? Moving along. There was a thing. I wanted to get into payday loans because Mike and I were talking about this before because it bothered us. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is a Politburo, it's self-regulating. It's insane. Is trying to regulate payday loans. For people who I don't know, need an advance on a paycheck, probably to pay their bills or to put groceries in the fridge. This CFPB is looking to limit the amount of fees and interest that can be charged. Mike, why does this piss you off so much? And tell me why it pisses me off so much while you're at it.
Well, the reason it pisses me off is because, like almost every government regulation that's ever been conceived, the people that it's supposed to help are the people that are going to be most harmed by it. If there wasn't a market for payday loans in some of the lower income neighborhoods, then they wouldn't be in existence. The fact is that there's a market for it, and there's people using these to pay bills, and there are people that cannot get funding from traditional lending sources. So what pisses me off about it is, of course, they charge higher interest rates because these are risky loans. That's how this works. And they seem obscene, but if you don't charge a high interest rate, then you're not going to get the loan out. So, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says they're going to limit, what interest rate they can charge. Well, what you're going to do is you're actually going to put these places out of business. They're not going to be able to get this money from traditional lending sources, and then they're not going to be able to pay their heating bill or their electric bill, or their car is going to get repossessed, and you're not going to help these people. And one of the misconceptions of these places is when you see a 30% interest rate on that loan, that's an annual interest rate. These loans aren't turning over for a year. These are week,
Right.
2 week, 3 week loans. So as long as you make your payment, you're not even paying that 30% interest rate. They're just trying to fight a war that they're not going to be able to win, and it's going to end up hurting the people that they're trying to help.
Right. I mean, and I don't know, Matt, did you hear all that? Okay. Perfect.
Oh,
So
wow.
now you can't. So I want to see, because generally I always think that you just repeat what the last person said because you don't really know things. So now
not
this is a
single
test.
thing. I'm like Helen
Okay.
Keller right now. But
How do you? I mean, Mike just talked about how regulating these payday loans hurts the people that they're trying to help the most.
Okay.
Do you see this as arrogance, from
I
from
know.
politicians. Moreover, what business does a federal bureaucracy have over regulating these institutions at the local level? That's still crazy to me. But what do you think?
Yes. I mean, I think people see the interest rates that payday loan institutions charge and think it's obscene. But I don't. I study finance, so I know how they get these numbers, and I mean, it's just based on the probability that these poor people will pay them back. If lower income people paid these payday loans back at a higher rate, then they wouldn't have to pay such
Right, then
insane
you're in a
rates.
bind if you have to pay your heating
I think
bill,
you've got to
or
regulate the kind of
or
rate
your
that
electricity
payday loans
bill.
charge
Moreover,
based on
sometimes
the
these fees
variety
that they
of availability of
charge
payday loans
may not be as
therefore
much as a
payday
late
loans
fee
need
that you would
So,
incur for not
I mean,
paying
I
your
think
bill. Perhaps it's the same amount, perhaps it's less. How do we know?
yeah, I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
They
500%
extrapolate the
interest
interest
on, let's
rates.
say,
I think.
$100 loan
Go ahead.
sounds enormous, but you're paying a loan back in a week, so it's not like you're literally paying 100% over the course of a year. So yeah, right. I mean, I think it was.
Right.
I think.
And I think these
I think
people
payday
know
loans
it's a
should
last
be,
resort.
a
That's
last
why they're
case
going there. They're desperate.
like,
They
a
can't get a
last
loan
resort for
anywhere else,
people,
and
but
they
I
have
think
a
the answer
paycheck
would be
coming up,
better
and maybe they need to
education
feed
about
their
them
kids.
rather than
I don't
getting
know,
rid of
but
them
I
altogether.
have a problem with politicians, know nothing politicians that interject themselves in in a transaction between two people, a mutually beneficial transaction. They would not do it. There would not be
Yeah.
a market for it if it wasn't mutually beneficial or it wasn't helping the one person. That would it would dry up completely. So
Yeah, there's actually I remember there's this guy on YouTube I used to watch called How the World Works, and he was talking about like some politicians who wanted to, I guess, solve the problem of
right.
ATM fees at some like
This
absurd
is
ATM fees at some ATMs.
This is what I mean, but
And
this is how
basically, what
what
happened
government
when they
does.
lowered the
Certainly, I mean,
ATM
we all
fees, it
talk
just
about
dried up the supply
socialism,
of
socialism.
ATMs
This is
because you need a
fascism. This
certain
is what
fee
they
to
do. They control
deposit.
businesses through
So I think it's
regulation,
the
and
same thing with
they're
payday
trying to put the payday loan business, trying to put payday loans out of business. And I'm going to speculate here. It's because they want these people to turn to government for help, and not a private institution that gives them a short-term loan. And they'll demagogue it until tomorrow. This is what they do. They constantly do. They need to get more people hooked on government. They'll get this larger voting bloc, and it will afford them more power. I mean, call me crazy, but I think that's what they want to do. It's in the politicians' self-interest. Certainly not in the self-interest of the people that are most vulnerable that need these loans. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Morgan, but what do you think of this stuff? What do you think the motives are of the politicians?
Well, obviously to get more power. I had not heard of this before we did this, so I'm just swinging a bat here. But the only thing I can think about when we talk about this is the game Payday. So when I hear payday loans right now, all I think is I can get a loan to play the game Payday, which is a good game in which you rob banks. So I'm assuming that it has something to do with robbing people.
Right.
I have
Okay.
no idea. I have no idea what this was until I heard it.
I-
I'm just thinking,
There's also-
payday.
There's one thing I wanted to get to, halfway through the show, and that's a rumor that's been going around. I want Michael to opine on this. There's a lot of word going around about Matt Palumbo's age. Do you think it's true that Matt Palumbo is 13 years old? Or do you think he's older? What's the over-under on that? Older or younger? Go ahead.
Look, I have the inside scoop on this. He's not actually 13 because his birthday was a few days ago. He's 14 now. But that's a fact.
Oh, he's 14. Okay,
Now he's 14.
Ladies. Maddie, what is your real age? Can you clear this up for us? Because, you're 15.
15.
Wow. So you're 3 years. So you're 3 years older than Morgan. Got it.
Yeah. No, he's young. I don't know.
15.
Right.
Yes, sir.
You had your permit.
That's
No,
pretty-
you know that he's young because I don't know
Yeah.
if your guys' internet is good enough,
I
but
don't know
mine's
how
good
I was
enough.
able
I
to
saw his
drive
mom
from
run
DC
past
to,
behind
New
him
Jersey at one
just
time,
a
only
few
being
minutes
15,
ago.
but I guess I
So you
was.
know
You did?
he is, he's in high school. Yeah, your internet might not be good enough, but she was fast. I
It was
picked
the
it up.
shittiest car ride
I
I
could
ever
freeze
had
frame,
before going,
so
but-
he's he's young.
So that's a good. So that leads me to my next question, Matt. Are you currently living with your mom?
He
All
can't
right,
hear
that's pretty
me
funny.
or he can't hear me or
You can't
Morgan
hear
anymore.
us?
He can only hear me.
All right.
I didn't hear what Morgan said, but no, I'm not.
One of my favorite things to talk about, and I don't think a lot of people like to talk about it,
I
is
have
the
to play
upcoming
this
presidential
back
election.
later. I'm probably
And I want to
angry
talk
at what you were
about
saying about me,
the.
but oh
I want to talk about our last show. We talked about the Republican candidates. I want to talk about the libs this time. I mean, you think Hillary Clinton is a shoo-in like everybody else does, or do you think she'll get a little rival from the left? What do you think? Well, Mike, what do you think? You go first.
Well, there was a poll out today, and Unbiased America shared it because they're biased to the left.
Yeah, I don't even follow that page.
Hillary's
It's
actually
supposed to be
behind. Yeah, I know. They're left of being liberal. But Hillary Clinton's
Mhm.
actually running behind in the polls Elizabeth Warren in Iowa and New Hampshire right now. Elizabeth
No way.
Warren said that she doesn't want to run, but when you see a poll like that, you got to wonder if she's going to get a little interested in it. And obviously, I think a lot of us here don't really like Elizabeth Warren, but I do think that she could present a lot of challenges to Hillary Clinton from the left.
I mean, what is the allure of the left? And why has the left become so emboldened? I mean, I remember 15, maybe 20 years ago, just calling a candidate a liberal was a death knell. Where did all this progressivism start to seep into the country? Even the Republicans have shifted further to the left in the past 15 years. Where do you think all this support's coming from? Where are they building the support?
Are you asking me?
Mike? Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is Bush was unpopular, and Bush was a conservative, even though he wasn't. But I think that's a lot of the reason that you see a lot of they've gained confidence. Bush wasn't popular in the U.S. He wasn't popular around the world, and that can cause a shift from people to say, hey, maybe we have to look on the other side of the spectrum. I think that's the main reason that you've seen that, because Clinton certainly didn't want to identify as a hard left liberal, but now you have people like Elizabeth Warren running left of Clinton, and she's more popular than Clinton. So it's an interesting thing, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Bush term.
Okay. Maddie, what do you think about that? Did you hear my question? No, yeah, about getting a challenger from her left and where all the support from the left comes from. We've just seen a leftist president, destroy our foreign policy, and much of the economy, and destroying it insofar as, has the economy grown? Certainly, but despite his horrible, atrocious policies. So where is the support still coming from? And can you hear me? And why are you 13? Okay.
Oh no, it's not.
I told
There
him
he
too
goes.
that you were that he was gonna be out for you in a second. He couldn't hear me or
Yeah.
Morgan a second ago. Now he can't hear you either.
Okay, well, anyway, we don't care about him because we have a new host, and her name is Morgan Parody. Morgan, did you hear my question?
I did hear your question. I don't know what poll showed that Elizabeth Warren was higher than Hillary. I have never heard that.
I think it was in a few states. I think she was 3 points higher in one.
Oh.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. I don't remember
Iowa,
which.
New Hampshire,
Iowa.
Iowa,
Right.
New Hampshire. You got the first caucus, obviously, and then the first primary. So that's pretty big news, actually.
And she was
That's
leading in New Hampshire by
shocking.
3 points, I think. Yeah. And I mean,
Really?
here's somebody, and Elizabeth Warren's somebody who said she wasn't going to run. You know what I mean? And she's still leading in the polls. I don't know how long that will last. You get her out on the campaign trail. I think Hillary has a more experienced staff and can probably destroy her in some areas. But Hillary's destroyable too. I don't know how well Hillary will do with the whole Benghazi incident and the Russian reset, which apparently didn't work out too well.
nobody who would vote for her cares about Benghazi. I mean, people are voting on name recognition, and Clinton will get it there fine. Just because, for some
Oh,
reason, girls my age have this big obsession with Bill Clinton, and we just read this speech today about the study that they did about high school economics like level of intelligence, and they could only answer 40% of the questions right when they ask really simple economic questions. So they don't know what's
shocked it was
happening
that
to the
high.
economy. Yeah, no, I know. They don't like. There was like 20% could identify what the definition of profits was. Like they couldn't do anything. So they don't. I don't think that they care about like
I
how
can
the
hear you all
economy
now.
is doing. All they see is like right now that I'm in Wisconsin. So did you hear about Scott Walker's? Okay, cool. But Scott Walker's huge budget cut to the UW system. Did you hear about that? He's slashing like
Oh
300
no.
million over. Yeah, he's slashing 300 million over like 2 years. I don't know, but it's a big
Good.
number,
I
and
can't
they've been
hear anything.
protesting it like crazy because they don't get it. They don't understand that there's so much money that they're being spent, and there's apparently this slush fund that people aren't. They're not even the
Yeah.
school's not even spending. They're just keeping it away and acting like they have no money. Apparently, that's what I've read, but I just think that kids that are so economically illiterate and don't know anything are going to vote for Clinton, and that's going to get her somewhere. I haven't heard anybody who knows any person who's not involved know who Warren is. Nobody knows who Elizabeth Warren is.
Elizabeth Warren, though,
Oh.
is the queen of anybody that is economically illiterate. And I think Elizabeth Warren knows
But
that.
the only reason anybody knows her is because of that meme where she's yelling with her hand up, and it says that like college students be able to borrow
That's
at
so stupid.
0.75% or whatever. So should college
Yeah.
students.
Yeah, because Wall
We
Street
shouldn't be
can,
treating them
yeah,
like profit
which is a
centers.
completely
Yeah,
different
I know.
situation.
But people don't even know her name, but that's the only reason
Percent that
anybody
banks
knows
can
her
borrow
for,
at
which is
for
pretty
overnight
sad.
loans, not
So let's go back to young people liking
30-year
Bill
loans,
Clinton.
15-year loans.
Okay,
like,
that
yeah.
stuck out of my head.
So,
Yeah.
What do they like? Why do they like Bill Clinton?
Well, because he got the internet age, where it was just booming and everything, and he's like, for some reason, he's like this sexual figure, and he plays the saxophone. I just know, just what acting girls like my age around me, they all think they like worship him. I mean, they do that to Obama too. It's really really gross. No matter what he does, they have like crushes on him.
it's good that
Like,
no
they
one can
love
must be
him.
like-
Hillary
It's
then.
very
It must be
strange.
It must be the power aspect because they're not.
Yeah, like a
Oh,
dominance
yeah. I
thing.
mean,
I don't know. It's just really weird to me.
I happen to have a huge crush on Hillary Clinton. I think she's
I
beautiful.
can't hear Will there.
Her
Yeah.
pantsuits are really arousing. Clearly, hold on. Clearly, we moved on to the segments where we're taking questions. And a viewer, Kevin Ryan.
Hey,
Kevin
Megan
Ryan.
Gillen. Rand Paul is way hotter. It's true. Rand Paul is cute.
A lady named Kevin Ryan wants to ask a question, and it's should we replace Will? I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. It should probably be with somebody who has a computer with a camera and that can actually hook up to the internet. What do you guys think? What do you think, Mike?
Well, the question of should we replace Will, I'm kind of split 50-50. I think that the kind of people that add value to the show are the people that have computers and that can be on the show every week. And so that kind of makes me lean towards that we should keep Will, because Will's here every week, and he has a computer that actually works, and he doesn't promise that he's got some sort of MacBook in the mail or something like that, whatever that means.
Yeah, I know.
So I think
That's a good
At
one.
the end of the day, I think
Yeah.
we should keep Will on the show.
Oh, mine's coming in the mail. My credit card got stolen. Probably whoever. I mean, you got to make sure whoever you have that does this probably doesn't live under a bridge and makes more than $20 a month. So that would be good.
Yeah.
Maddie, do you think
I don't make $20 a month.
you? Well, that
I
makes
don't
two
have
of
a
us.
job. I don't have a job. I'm at school. I pay like many dollars a month to go to school,
Yeah,
but I make nothing.
yeah, but you're paying to earn skills so that you can go
Yeah.
into the marketplace.
Still.
Are you there, Matt? Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. Do you think Will should be replaced?
No, I think you're a great host, Will.
Oh, you're a good guy. I mean, I'm just gonna bash on you the entire show, and I give you an opportunity, and you don't even take it. I like you. You're a good guy. Next question. What school of economics do you guys
Now I can't
follow?
hear.
That's an easy question for me.
Yeah, so
I'll let Matt go first, and then I'll let Michael go first, then I'll go, and then Morgan can go. How about that?
Ouch.
How can two people go first?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if anybody actually. I'm not going to say that. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't think Matt knows what's going on.
No, I mean that's daily life for Matt. Mike, why don't you answer the question?
School of economics that I follow. I think a lot of libertarians follow the Austrian school. I'm certainly sympathetic to the Austrian school. I think they have a lot of good points. If I had to pick one, I would go with the Chicago school. I think Friedman has it right. Thomas Sowell has it right. I really like the Chicago school. I think that's the best one.
I would agree with you. I'm a Chicago school adherent. It doesn't mean that I'm anti-Austrian. Certainly Austrians have had their place in the history of economic thought. The marginalist revolution with Karl Menger. I think sometimes Austrians tend to be throwbacks with regards to using mathematics and empirical study, solely using deduction in their methodological processes. So yeah, I'm definitely a Chicago school adherent. I think a lot of people wrongly associate it with the methodology with monetarism and somehow I don't know, validating the Fed and so on. And so I think they see it as like, if you're the Chicago school, you're for the Fed, which is incredibly untrue. So there's a lot of myths going on about it.
It's not necessarily that you're for Fed. I think that a lot of people that prescribe to the Austrian school think that if you're not for the gold standard or going back to the gold standard, that means you're pro-Fed. I think if you even look at the founder of the Chicago school, which is Friedman was more critical of the Fed than a lot of people were.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, that we should go back on the gold standard. Just because you're anti-gold standard or you don't want to be on the gold standard doesn't necessarily mean that you're pro-Fed policies.
Right. Also, I mean, to Friedman's point, there has never been a metallic standard, just a pure metallic standard, in the absence of any fiduciary money, meaning that all governments on a metallic standard would always print money. The money was it's the same as fiat money. It's really no different at that point. So the metallic standards don't work as well as people do, and I think the only thing that would really it has a legitimate shot is private competing currencies. That's my view, even though there's cost benefits to that too, insofar as network effects are concerned. And we saw that a little bit. Go ahead.
Let's establish one thing. There is no such thing as intrinsic value. And I think that gets lost somehow in the debate. I don't know how this keeps coming up over and over again. There is no such thing as intrinsic value, and I think people have to recognize that before we can even go forward and talk about this anymore, because that's the answer you're going to get. So I think you have to establish that first. There's no such thing as intrinsic value.
Any currencies merely trades against goods and services. So you're basically using it as You're using it as an exchange for goods and services. It's a trade. You're trading, using it as an exchange. There is no intrinsic value in gold. I can't eat gold. I can't build a house of gold. I suppose I could, but in the same regards, I can't eat a $1 bill, so on and so forth. What do you think, Morgan? What school do you adhere to if you had to pick one?
I'm gonna have to disagree with you guys and say Austrian. I don't know. Friedman is cool. Watched a lot of his lectures and such, but like the minimum income stuff, I don't know. There's just some really specific stuff that.
All right, well, let me stop you there. Here's the problem.
Okay.
He took mitigative steps within the system that we have now, and this is the difference between Austrians and the Chicago school. Is it gradual? When he did propose that, he said, in the absence of all other welfare, a negative income tax is far better because of the incentives. Right. It incentivizes work, and eventually people would get out of it. It's not that Friedman said, this should, in any polity, this should happen. It's just he's taking these mitigative steps to ameliorate the bad parts of government and their interjections into the economy. I see Austrians, they're always about non-gradualism. If there's a problem with the Fed, abolish it. That's there's nothing to mitigate it. It exists. It's politically infeasible to get rid of it right now. So, they came up with plan to stabilize the currency, which is what we needed certainly in the early 80s, and we've had low inflation since, which is a good thing. But I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. Who's your favorite Austrian economist?
I read Human Action, which was very hard to understand, but it was really good. I thought it was interesting not only as it applies to economics, but as it applies to life and the world in general. I just thought praxeology was really, really interesting. So Mises is awesome. I read the Enemy of the State, which converted me from basically a sort of big government conservative to, a sort of voluntarist ideas. But I know what you're saying about how we can't just, oh my gosh, all of a sudden everything's gone. Laws gone, Fed gone immediately because people are going to freak out at that. Oh my phone. But I think as an end goal, and I'm not saying I'm end gaining, but in an ideal as it would be an Austrian world. I understand where Friedman comes from as far as taking steps to get where somebody might want to be, or we might want to be in the country.
You could see there's this. You could Google it, but there's this great correspondence between Walter Block and Milton Friedman in the late '90s, and Friedman, they were debating a little bit about methodology and these steps to take in order to implement certain free market policies, and just Friedman took him to task. It was incredible, and Friedman's arguments were ironclad, and Block just seemed kind of like, I don't know, a chihuahua biting at the ankles of a giant. So that kind of moved me even more towards the Chicago school, and these it's just more practical. Not that I love Hayek. Hayek's one of my favorite economists, but even he didn't take this hardline step on methodology and so on and so forth. And Hayek was a brilliant man. He was a student of Mises, and I don't know. I think they just got to be a bit too ideological in their methodological approach rather than assessing facts and assessing reality. Maddie, we all know you're Keynesian. Can you hear me? You should probably, I don't know, find some way to stimulate your internet connection. Anyway, let's take another question. Let's see what we got here. I think we have like 3 questions. All of them were about Matt. Here we have a good one. This is what we were probably going to talk about anyway, but the opinions on Obama asking to declare war on Syria. It's not so much that he's declaring war, he's looking for an AOF or an authorization of force. I'm not sure if he has to declare war, because it's not really in one geographic area. He's going to have to go all over. So that's really a good question, but I think an authorization of force would cover most of that. What do you think, Mike? What are your opinions on him going to Congress for an authorization of force?
Well, I think it's good that he's going to Congress for an authorization of force. That helps a lot of the situation. Congress, they can be on the same page. Congress can't defund any sort of operation. I think the question, declare war on Syria. Well, Syria, if we're declaring war on Syria, is actually Assad's government. I think the situation is not restricted to one geographic area. There's Iraq, there's Syria, and it could spread even further than that. So I think Obama wants to fight ISIS, and I think that could end up being in Syria and in Iraq, and I think
in Jordan.
It could be in Jordan. So
Libya.
It could be anywhere, and that's part of the danger of it. I think that's part of the danger of kind of broad authorizations of force, but it is better in the way that at least he went to Congress and he said, hey, let's get on the same page. What are we about to do? Because he talked about the air campaign against ISIS months ago. And Rand Paul was even talking about this. He's like, well, hey, when are you going to include Congress in this decision-making process? You only have a couple months to do it. So at least we're going to have a debate about this. It's going to get out there, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Right. What do you think, Morgan? I know you'll have a strong opinion on this.
I don't know. I'm not the big foreign policy person, but I just think it's interesting how leftists will protect anything he does as far as war goes, because everyone used to be so against it. I mean, Bush was doing the same stuff, and then they were so upset, and now it doesn't matter to them. I just think it's really interesting, and it bothers me that it's so much money that could be risked for not doing anything at all. And did you hear about it was Jordan, like a Jordanian like drone or something killed 7,000 ISIL members or something?
Oh,
Did you
Jordan?
hear
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I don't know if I heard that
I don't,
specifically, but
but how many like what have we done? Is that a big I just thought that was pretty crazy since they just started their big fight against it.
right.
But we'll be
My,
like it'll be a success for us to get like 400. There was one time when there was 400 people we allegedly killed as part of ISIS, and it was a big deal.
And that's a strategy we used in Vietnam. It didn't work that well.
yeah. No, I know. Right. Well, Vietnam had many problems. That was one of them. What do you think about? Do you see? I mean, here's another question. I think we talked about this briefly, but Mike, do you see ISIS as a threat to the homeland?
Who are you asking?
Can you hear me? I'm asking you.
Oh, do I think ISIS is a threat to the homeland?
Yeah.
Maybe very, very little bit. And, we talk about terrorist threats. They're probably less of a threat to the homeland than Al Qaeda is. So I don't think they're a huge threat to the homeland. I think they've made their goals clear. They want to establish an Islamic caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and I think that's their main goal. And I think really they could probably care less about attacking Washington, D.C. or Los Angeles. I don't think that's really on their short-term bucket list. So I don't think it proposes a large threat to the actual homeland. I think it poses more of a threat to some of our allies overseas. But to the United States homeland, I don't think it poses much of a threat, no.
Do you see any parallels between their build-up, ISIS's takeover between Germany, say in 1933? I mean, and studying history, this somewhat parallels the interwar period. We have this enemy that's building up, and people are saying at the time they're war weary, obviously from World War I, and we're war weary from Iraq. People saying that, oh, this isn't a threat to the homeland, it's not a threat to us yet. They'll never rival our power, so why do we need to go over there, so on and so forth. And I mean, a guy like Winston Churchill, who was crying foul about Hitler as early as 1933, was being called a warmonger. And I think I see some parallels, and in my opinion, call me a conservative, call me whatever you want, I think ISIS needs to be annihilated. I think we need to go in there and kill every last one of them and annihilate the ideology altogether. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think one thing I understand that there's a lot of parallels between Nazi Germany and ISIS, and I think that you actually have a legitimate point. I actually haven't really heard that point at all. But I think one of the main differences that people have to realize is that in the Middle East, there's too many factions. ISIS is concerned about one thing, but they don't have the support of an entire nation. They can only get, the support of their little group together. They're not going to have the support of the different factions. And that's one of the things that made Nazi Germany so strong, was the fact that Hitler was able to rally the entire country and the entire population behind him. ISIS is only going to be fighting civil wars. They're going to be worried about establishing that.
You said it yourself, though. You said they want to establish a caliphate. They did take over large swaths of land. They took over Mosul. They took over parts of Syria. They took over Libya. They're trying to take over Jordan. I don't know. I mean, look, is there going to be civil war? Sure,
but what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to defend that land, because no one's going to accept the fact that they took it. And that's the difference between.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look at a lot of the governments.
Hitler's takeover was political, and it came off the Great Depression when people were desperate.
Right. Their currency collapsed
that's not
because
the same
they had
kind of situation. People in the Middle East could care less what the economic situation is. They don't care. If ISIS takes their land, they're not going to accept that. They're going to fight back, and they could take large swaths of land. It's going to be a constant civil war. It's not the same situation as Western Europe. It's just, I understand the parallels, but I don't think it's going to turn out the same.
Okay, I mean, I disagree only insofar as I don't see them defending their land that often. I see a lot of usurpers and dictators come into power relatively easily there, or keep power relatively easily. I don't see a lot of freedom fighters fighting for liberty in the Middle East. That's my opinion. I mean, ISIS is scary. They control the masses with fear, propaganda, and they'll kill you if you don't agree. It's not like, the Christians there, they're slaughtering Christians. It's really disgusting what they're doing, and people are terrified. And I don't think they have the will to fight back. I don't think they have the means to fight back. What do you think, Morgan?
Well, from a journalism perspective, I noticed when we were talking about it today that when there is a captive or something by ISIS, a lot of journalists won't report on it. They'll know about it, but they won't report on it because the more people get excited, like people talk about it and it gets sort of cycled around and stuff, people keep talking, the greater the chances are that they're gonna kill them quicker, so
Right.
they let the government take care of it. Well, the media doesn't report on it. So, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because maybe when they kill people like this, they make these dramatic, beheading videos and stuff. It's because we're reporting on it. We're showing it. We're doing these stories. We're getting, upset. I just, it's a fine line because we want to know what's going on, but we don't want to
Yeah.
encourage this kind of stuff.
I don't know if that, yeah, to that point, I mean, the beheadings and stuff that they did on air, I don't know if they want to continue to do that because the last time they did, that's when we started our air assault, and I don't think we've seen much of that since.
I can hear you right
I would
now.
actually ask Matt Palumbo a question, but it just seems that all we can just see is his beautiful face.
What do you think about
Oh,
ISIS?
man,
Oh,
this
there
is
you go.
crazy. Cool. So,
Yeah,
What do you
I'm
think-
against them.
so what do you, one, I wanted to, yeah,
Next, so what's the question?
yeah.
Good answer.
There you go. Good. The question was on foreign policy, but I'm going to dump that. I want to move on to the next question. Aaron's asking, how do you guys feel about global warming or climate change? Whatever you want to call it these days. It's changed many times. It's like a moving target. Are you a skeptic, or do you 100% believe it's anthropogenic, naturally occurring, etc.? Let's start with you, Mike. Do you think capitalism and Americans are creating this global warming epidemic where all the polar bears are dying, fish are dying, trees aren't growing, and little children are starving? Go ahead.
Well, okay. I think that human progress has caused the problem. I also think that human progress is eventually going to solve the problem. I think this debate has gotten a little out of hand. I think you hear it from the left, everybody else is a climate denier. Well, if you just read what the scientists say, some of the models that they're predicting, they don't know which model is going to be right. And the one that the left uses all the time is the worst case scenario. They always want to tell you that the worst case scenario is what we're denying. But they don't even know that that's the least likely scenario as well. There's multiple scenarios, there's multiple models, and no one wants to talk about the other ones. They want to say, hey, here's the worst case scenario, and if you don't want to take drastic government action to avoid this, well, then you're just a science denying, climate change denying, asshole. So, no, I think that we have to be more pragmatic about our approach. We can't, I don't think the political arena is the right arena to have this debate at all, because when we bring it into politics, we get this kind of problem. I think we should leave it to, market advancements and technology advancements
I
and
agree.
science, no government.
And they brought it into and politicians, certainly the left, brought it into political discourse because it helps with their narrative. This production that we're having, this booming economy, capitalism, wealth inequality is causing the earth to warm. Oh God, a polar bear is going to die. Matt, what do you think? Are you skeptical of global warming? Do you think it's man-made? And do you think that the United States possibly toning down its energy
actually do
production
think
or
it's
its use of
an
energy is
issue.
going to help
I think
anything
the
at
debate
all?
should be not whether or not it exists, but what strategy we should take to fight it necessarily. Should we take an adaptation strategy where we change our infrastructure to kind of account for some of the negative side effects of it, or do we restrict output to limit pollution? I think the debate should kind of be between those two options rather than whether or not it exists. But
Right. Morgan, what do you think?
Well, I wrote a piece about this once about how the most, like, what was it? The most environmentally healthy energy or whatever was here already, and it's freedom, obviously. But I think that before we try to alienate people just on the idea of climate, just if you say, oh, I don't think the government should be doing anything about it, they'll get out of you, like get out of the discussion altogether and say you're a climate change denier or something. So we have to first influence them on how free markets will take care of the problem. But I am as far as nature goes, I have thought about this a lot, and stuff like cars, I would say, is nature. I think it's a natural thing for us to be progressing like this, and that my tinfoil hat theory is that no matter what things that we do, as far as, I mean, if a market is natural, if we do things operating in a market environment, that it's going to be a natural result, like maybe more CO2, but I think that nature can handle it.
Right. No, well, you're talking about feedback. If there's more CO2 in the atmosphere, more plants will grow, more vegetation will grow. The Earth has a way of regulating itself. Furthermore, this
Right,
idea
but
that... Go ahead.
oh, I was just reinforcing that I think that the things that we create, no matter how pollution, oriented it is, or how much we think it destroys the environment, it comes as a result as natural decisions. Like, as humans, we are making decisions to make ourselves naturally better. Like we want to live better, and I think that's part of nature just as much as a tree is part of nature.
Right. When did humans cease to become part of actual nature? Is basically what you're saying. Like,
yeah.
So, I agree to an extent. I think this thing about carbon pollution, I think that's laughable, being that carbon's the essential building block of all life in the universe. So to call it a pollutant is like saying water is a pollutant. Okay. There's no conclusive evidence that it's man-made. Global warming is man-made. A lot of scientists have come out and said that. They're more skeptical now than they were before, based on current science and models. There's also astrophysicists and climatologists that come out and say it could be an effect of the sun. You also have to look at where a lot of the money's going, and a lot of governments are putting a lot of money into these climatologists. And if they come out and say, nope, there's no global warming, well, then the money dries up. So they have the incentives to create this stuff. I mean, we saw the Climate Gate there, and I think it was England, where they were fudging some of the numbers. A lot of the things are, a lot of the thing is they don't want the money to dry up. Also, I think Morgan's 12, and we haven't had any warming. I think it's been 19 years now. So it's been quite a while since we've had any actual.
There's a record size of like an ice cap and like by Antarctica, isn't there? It's like record sizes, according to at least one satellite saying that.
No, Al Gore said that that's gone. So
okay, then it's true. It's true then, yeah.
I never heard that before.
And Al Gore also created the internet.
That's true. So every day I get up and I look at my phone and think, thank God that the government made the internet, because without them, I would not have access to talking to these people. It's just every morning I just have to thank them.
I want to take one last question before we go. I think Michael resigned.
It's a question from
pretty promptly.
He's like, I didn't even say anything.
No, he's like, I can't stand Will's diatribe. Well, let me get out of there. You know what I mean? But I just want to reiterate for our viewers that Al Gore says there's no ice on the North Pole or on the South Pole. So all the penguins are dead. Okay, vote Democrat. Let me see. Let me see here. I want to get another question. We have a bunch of questions. Here we go. We have one from Libertarian Troll, which is very insightful. It's, who are you wearing? Right now, I am wearing, I don't know. It's a t-shirt that I found. But people might be more interested in what Matt Palumbo's wearing.
I'm in the same boat as Will here. Who am I wearing?
Who?
I have an answer to that.
Who are you wearing? Yeah, I don't know. Mike has his hoodie on. That's definitely a Nike hoodie.
Yeah, it's so Nike. I don't even have a hood.
Who are you wearing, Morgan? It looks like you're wearing Paul Bunyan.
I'm wearing bullhead jeans and also Steve Madden boots. So I actually have a name. I'm wearing Steve Madden.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Steve Madden. You have Steve Madden boots. I'm in bare feet. But that was a pretty good show. I think we're going to wrap it up. But tune in next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Matt will probably be able to hear what we're saying. And hopefully we'll get Kevin from Unbiased America on here. He's usually on Bitches and Bourbon because, he's a bitch. So, but we're going to bring him on Beer and Bastards because we feel badly for him. So tune in next week, and thanks for watching the show. Have a good day.